What happens when a military's most elite training program tells a woman she doesn't belong? What happens when instructors laugh at her dreams and fellow recruits whisper that she's too weak, too emotional, too different to ever hold a sniper rifle in combat? Most people would walk away defeated. Most people would accept that some doors are simply meant to stay closed. Sarah Mitchell wasn't most people. When they kicked her out of Navy SEAL sniper school after just 6 weeks, citing physical limitations and lack of mental fortitude, they thought they were protecting their prestigious program from embarrassment. They thought they were maintaining standards. They had no idea they were creating their own worst nightmare. Because sometimes the person you underestimate becomes the very person who rewrites history. Sometimes the soldier you reject becomes the legend who makes you question everything you thought you knew about warfare, courage, and what it truly means to be elite. This is the story of how one woman's rejection became the military's greatest lesson in humility. How a failed sniper candidate went on to achieve kill counts that made seasoned veterans stop and stare. How she proved that the deadliest weapon on any battlefield isn't always the one you expect. Get ready to discover how Sarah Mitchell turned her greatest defeat into military legend. Sarah Mitchell's alarm clock buzzed at 4:30 a.m., just like it had every morning for the past 6 weeks at Navy SEAL Sniper School in Coronado, California. But this morning felt different. The weight in her stomach told her that today might be her last. She rolled out of her narrow bunk, her muscles still aching from yesterday's grueling training session. Around her, the other candidates were stirring, their movements sharp and military precise even in the pre-dawn darkness. 24 men, all elite soldiers handpicked from various special operations units. And then there was Sarah. At 26, Sarah had already served 4 tours in Afghanistan as an Army Ranger medic. She had saved countless lives under enemy fire, earned 2 Bronze Stars, and never once hesitated when duty called. But here, in this testosterone-fueled environment, she felt like an outsider looking through bulletproof glass. The whispers had started on day 1. "What's she even doing here?" muttered Sergeant Thompson, a grizzled Marine who had more confirmed kills than years of service. "This isn't some diversity experiment. Lives depend on precision." Sarah heard every word, felt every skeptical glance, but she kept her head down and her performance up. She consistently ranked in the top 5 for marksmanship, her mathematical mind calculating wind speed, distance, and trajectory with mechanical precision. She could field strip and reassemble a Barrett M82 faster than half the men in her class. Her physical fitness scores, while not the highest, met every requirement. But Lieutenant Commander Harrison, the lead instructor, seemed determined to find fault in everything she did. "Mitchell," his voice boomed across the shooting range that Tuesday morning as Sarah adjusted her scope. "Your breathing technique is inconsistent. A real sniper doesn't have the luxury of second chances." Sarah bit back her response. She had just placed 3 consecutive shots within a 2-inch grouping at 800 yards. In combat, any of those shots would have been lethal. But here, perfection wasn't enough. She needed to be better than perfect. The psychological pressure was relentless. During one-night exercise, the instructors simulated a hostage situation where split-second decisions meant life or death. Sarah successfully eliminated the target while protecting civilian mannequins. But Harrison criticized her for taking an extra half-second to confirm the shot. "In real combat, that hesitation gets people killed," he announced to the entire class, using her as an example of what not to do. What Harrison didn't mention was that her careful approach had prevented what would have been collateral damage. 2 other candidates that night had rushed their shots and killed innocent bystanders, but their mistakes were quietly noted and moved past. Sarah's caution was broadcast as weakness. The breaking point came during Week 6 final field exercise. The candidates were divided into teams and tasked with neutralizing high-value targets in a mock urban environment. Sarah's team leader, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, immediately assigned her to communications duty rather than a shooting position. "Nothing personal, Mitchell," Rodriguez said, avoiding eye contact, just playing to everyone's strengths. Sarah knew what this meant. Despite consistently outperforming several male candidates at marksmanship, she was being relegated to a support role because her presence made the men uncomfortable. She could either accept the diminished role or fight for the position she had earned. She chose to fight. With respect, Sergeant, my shooting scores qualify me for primary sniper position, Sarah said calmly. I've earned the right to be considered. Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. Around them, the other team members grew quiet. This was exactly the kind of confrontation that everyone had been dreading. Look, Mitchell, this isn't about scores. It's about trust. These guys need to know their sniper won't freeze when things get real. The words hung in the air like a physical blow. Sarah had never frozen in 4 combat deployments. She had performed life-saving surgery under mortar fire. She had called in airstrikes while enemy bullets shattered the walls around her. But here, in a training environment, her courage was being questioned because of her gender. The exercise proceeded with Sarah in the communications role. She watched through binoculars as their designated sniper, a Navy SEAL named Peterson, missed his first shot and compromised the entire mission. The target escaped, and their team failed the exercise. That evening, Lieutenant Commander Harrison called Sarah to his office. "Mitchell, you're a hell of a soldier," he began, but Sarah could already hear the "but" coming. "Your technical skills are solid, and your determination is admirable. But this program isn't just about individual capability. It's about fitting into a team dynamic that's been proven in combat." Sarah stood at attention, her face carefully neutral. "Sir, I believe my performance has demonstrated my ability to contribute to any team." Harrison leaned back in his chair. "The other candidates have expressed concerns about operational effectiveness. They worry about having to protect you in addition to completing the mission. Right or wrong, that perception affects unit cohesion." "Permission to speak freely, sir?" Harrison nodded. "Those same candidates have never served alongside women in combat. Their perceptions are based on assumptions, not experience. I've proven my capabilities in actual warfare, not just training exercises. I understand your frustration, Mitchell, but my job is to graduate snipers who can integrate seamlessly into existing special operations teams. The reality is that most of those teams aren't ready for female integration at the sniper level." Sarah felt her military composure beginning to crack. "So my qualifications are irrelevant because other people are uncomfortable with progress?" Harrison's expression hardened. "Your attitude right now is exactly why this isn't working. A sniper needs to be adaptable, not combative. You're fighting the system instead of working within it." The irony was staggering. Sarah was being criticized for fighting a system that was systematically discriminating against her. She was being called combative for defending qualifications she had legitimately earned. "Mitchell, you're an outstanding soldier, but you're not sniper material. At least not for the teams we're training you to join. I'm recommending your removal from the program." The words hit Sarah like physical blows. 6 weeks of 20-hour days, of proving herself again and again, of enduring doubt and discrimination, all ending with a dismissal based not on her performance, but on other people's prejudices. "This is effective immediately," Harrison continued. "You'll be transferred back to your regular unit tomorrow morning. I'll note in your file that you completed the program voluntarily due to personal reasons. That way, there's no negative mark on your record." Sarah almost laughed at the twisted kindness. They were even trying to protect her from the consequences of their own bias. "Is there anything else, sir?" she asked, her voice steady despite the rage building inside her chest. "For what it's worth, Mitchell, you're one of the best natural shots I've seen in 15 years of instruction. In a different time, under different circumstances, you might have made an exceptional sniper." Sarah saluted crisply and walked out of the office, her mind already racing. They thought they were ending her sniper career, but they had no idea what they had just unleashed. As she packed her gear that night, Sarah made a promise to herself. She would prove them wrong, but not by begging for acceptance or trying to change their minds through appeals to fairness. She would prove them wrong by becoming so undeniably good that they would have to acknowledge her excellence. She would prove them wrong on the battlefield. The next morning, as Sarah loaded her duffel bag into the transport vehicle, Sergeant Thompson approached her. For a moment, she thought he might offer some grudging word of respect or encouragement. Instead, he said, "Better luck in your next career, Mitchell. Maybe try something more suited to your capabilities." Sarah looked him directly in the eye. "Thank you for the advice, Sergeant. I'll remember this conversation." As the vehicle pulled away from the training facility, Sarah watched the buildings grow smaller in the rear window. Everyone there believed they had just witnessed the end of her sniper aspirations. They believed they had protected their elite program from an experiment that wasn't ready for prime time. They couldn't have been more wrong. Sarah Mitchell was about to begin the most extraordinary chapter of her military career. She was about to prove that sometimes the biggest mistake an institution can make is telling a truly exceptional person that they don't belong. The rejection that was meant to end her journey was actually just the beginning. 3 months after her dismissal from SEAL Sniper School, Sarah Mitchell found herself in the most unlikely place imaginable, a remote ranch in Montana, learning from a man who didn't even know her real name. Master Sergeant James Ghost Reynolds had been tracking Sarah's career through military channels for weeks before he made contact. A legendary Army sniper with over 200 confirmed kills across 3 decades of service, Ghost had watched the sniper school situation unfold with growing disgust. "Politics and prejudice don't stop bullets," he told Sarah during their first phone conversation. "But they sure as hell waste talent." Ghost had retired from active duty 2 years earlier, but he still maintained connections throughout the special operations community. He had heard about Sarah's dismissal through unofficial channels, and after reviewing her service record and training scores, he reached a conclusion that would change everything. The military had just thrown away one of the most naturally gifted marksmen he had ever encountered on paper. "Come to Montana," he said simply. "Bring your gear. We're going to turn you into something those fools at Coronado never imagined." The ranch sat on 3,000 acres of rugged terrain that perfectly simulated urban, mountain, and desert combat environments. Ghost had designed every inch of it for advanced sniper training, complete with moving targets, variable weather conditions, and scenarios that pushed shooters beyond anything they would encounter in formal military programs. Sarah arrived on a Tuesday morning to find Ghost waiting with a cup of coffee and a rifle case. "First lesson," he said without preamble. "Forget everything you learned in sniper school. Not because it was wrong, but because it was incomplete. They train you to pass tests. I'm going to train you to be lethal." The difference became apparent immediately. While military sniper training focused on standardized techniques and predictable scenarios, Ghost's approach was chaotic, adaptive, and brutally realistic. He would wake Sarah at random hours and demand precision shots while she was still groggy. He created scenarios where she had to engage multiple targets while civilians moved through a field of fire. He simulated equipment failures, communication breakdowns, and extraction emergencies. "Real combat doesn't wait for you to be ready," Ghost explained as Sarah struggled to zero her scope in a Montana blizzard. "The enemy doesn't care about your comfort zone." But the most important lesson wasn't about shooting. It was about thinking. "Any fool can pull a trigger," Ghost said during one of their evening debriefs. "A real sniper is a detective, a mathematician, a psychologist, and a strategist all wrapped into one. The shot is just the final step in a complex problem-solving process." He taught Sarah to read terrain like a book, identifying not just optimal shooting positions, but also escape routes, secondary positions, and contingency plans. He showed her how to predict enemy movement patterns by understanding their psychology and tactical limitations. He trained her to calculate not just distance and windage, but also the probability of mission success based on dozens of variables. Most importantly, he taught her to trust her instincts. "The military tries to systematize everything," Ghost explained. "Standard operating procedures, by-the-book tactics, approved methods. But combat is chaos. The sniper who survives is the one who can adapt when the system breaks down. After 2 months of intensive training, Ghost declared Sarah ready for the ultimate test, real-world application. Through his network of contacts, Ghost had learned about a classified operation in Syria where conventional forces were struggling with an entrenched sniper who had been terrorizing coalition patrols for months. The enemy marksman had killed 17 soldiers and wounded dozens more, always from extreme range and seemingly impossible positions. They've tried everything, Ghost told Sarah. Compte sniper, artillerie strike, drone surveillance. Nothing works. This guy is a ghost, and he's making our best snipers look like amateurs. The mission wasn't official. Sarah would be inserted as part of a military intelligence unit. Her real purpose known only to a handful of commanders who were desperate enough to try anything. If she succeeded, she would get no credit. If she failed or was killed, her participation would be denied. "Why are you doing this for me?" Sarah asked Ghost the night before her deployment. Ghost was quiet for a long moment. 30 years ago, I knew a female sniper in the Israeli Defense Forces. Best shooter I ever worked with. She could put 3 rounds through a quarter at 600 yards in a crosswind. But she was killed in Lebanon because her own command wouldn't trust her with the assignments she could have handled. They kept giving her safe, easy targets while she watched better opportunities slip away. He looked at Sarah directly. "I'm not letting talent like yours be wasted because small-minded people can't see past their prejudices." Sarah landed in Syria on a Thursday and was immediately briefed by Colonel Martinez, the frustrated commander of the 75th Ranger Regiment unit that had been hunting the enemy sniper. "Honestly, Mitchell, I'm skeptical about this whole thing," Martinez admitted. "But we're losing good soldiers every week, and conventional tactics aren't working. If you can eliminate this target, I don't care if you're a woman, a Martian, or a trained dolphin." The enemy sniper's pattern was maddeningly clever. He never used the same position twice, never stayed in one area for more than a few days, and never took shots unless he was certain of escape routes. Intelligence suggested he was moving between 3 different neighborhoods in the city, but pinpointing his location had proven impossible. Sarah spent her first week studying every attack, mapping every shooting position, and analyzing the tactical decisions behind each engagement. She noticed something that everyone else had missed. The sniper wasn't choosing positions based on optimal shooting angles. He was choosing them based on psychological impact. "He's not just trying to kill our soldiers," Sarah explained to Colonel Martinez. "He's trying to terrorize them. Every position he chooses is visible from multiple patrol routes. He wants our people to know they're being watched." This insight led to a crucial realization. The enemy sniper was prioritizing fear over efficiency, which meant he was making himself more predictable than he realized. Sarah identified a pattern in his target selection. He preferred shots that would be witnessed by other soldiers, creating maximum psychological damage. Based on this analysis, Sarah predicted that his next attack would come from a partially collapsed apartment building overlooking a main supply route that convoys used twice daily. The position offered an excellent view of the road, but also multiple escape routes through the building's damaged structure. Colonel Martinez was skeptical. "We've had surveillance on that building for 3 weeks. No movement, no signals, nothing. He's too smart to be detected by traditional surveillance," Sarah replied. "But he can't resist the tactical opportunity. Tomorrow's convoy will be perfect bait." Sarah positioned herself 800 yards away in the upper floor of a bombed-out school, her Barrett M82 carefully concealed behind debris and camouflage netting. She had been in position for 14 hours when movement in the target building caught her eye. Through her scope, she watched the enemy sniper carefully prepare his shooting position. He was methodical, professional, and completely unaware that he was being observed. Sarah tracked his movements for 20 minutes, learning his patterns and confirming her tactical assessment. When the convoy appeared on the road below, Sarah watched the enemy sniper settle into his final firing position. She could see him adjusting his scope, controlling his breathing, preparing to take a life. Sarah's finger found her trigger. She controlled her breathing, made final adjustments for wind and distance, and waited for the perfect moment. The enemy sniper never knew what hit him. Sarah's .50 caliber round struck him center mass, just as he was preparing to fire on the convoy below. The threat that had terrorized an entire regiment for months was eliminated in a single, perfectly placed shot. But Sarah didn't celebrate. Even as radio chatter confirmed the target's elimination, she was already analyzing potential secondary threats and planning her extraction route. Ghost had taught her that mission success was only achieved when you returned safely to base. When Sarah returned to the forward operating base that evening, she found Colonel Martinez waiting with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Mitchell, that was the most impressive piece of marksmanship I've witnessed in 20 years of military service," he said. "But I have to ask, how did you know exactly where he would be?" Sarah explained her psychological analysis and pattern recognition, walking Martinez through the logic that had led to her successful prediction. As she talked, she watched the colonel's expression change from skepticism to amazement to something approaching awe. "You didn't just outshoot him," Martinez said finally. "You outthought him. You understood his mind better than he understood it himself." Word of Sarah's success spread quickly through military intelligence channels, though always in whispered conversations and classified reports. Within days, she received 3 more mission requests from different commanders who had heard about the mysterious sniper who had solved an impossible problem. But Sarah's real vindication came in an encrypted message from Ghost. "The student has become a teacher. Time to show them what real excellence looks like." As Sarah prepared for her next mission, she reflected on how dramatically her situation had changed. 3 months ago, she had been told she wasn't good enough for sniper school. Now, she was being specifically requested by commanders who needed problems solved that conventional forces couldn't handle. The military system that had rejected her was now quietly depending on her exceptional abilities. The irony was delicious, but Sarah was focused on something more important than vindication. She was focused on proving that excellence transcends prejudice, and that true military effectiveness comes from utilizing the best soldiers available, regardless of any factor except their ability to complete the mission. Each successful mission was building her reputation and, more importantly, building a case that would eventually be impossible to ignore. Sarah Mitchell was becoming a legend, one impossible shot at a time. 18 months after her dismissal from SEAL Sniper School, Sarah Mitchell had become a ghost story whispered in military command centers across 3 continents. Officially, she didn't exist. Her missions were classified beyond top secret. Her kill count was known only to a handful of generals, and her identity was protected behind layers of military bureaucracy that even seasoned intelligence officers couldn't penetrate. But legends have a way of finding the light. The mission that would ultimately expose Sarah's extraordinary abilities began with a desperate phone call from General Patricia Hayes, commander of Joint Special Operations in Afghanistan. An elite Taliban sniper team had established positions in the mountains overlooking the Bagram supply corridor, systematically eliminating convoy security teams and threatening the entire logistics network that kept coalition forces operational. "We've lost 14 vehicles and 32 personnel in 6 weeks, General Hayes explained during a secure video conference. "Our best counter-sniper teams can't even locate these guys, let alone engage them. I need someone who can think outside conventional parameters." Sarah studied the intelligence reports and immediately recognized the sophistication of the enemy operation. This wasn't a lone wolf sniper like she had eliminated in Syria. This was a coordinated team of at least 4 shooters using advanced tactics that suggested professional military training. "They're using a rotation system," Sarah explained to Colonel Martinez, who had become her unofficial liaison for special assignments. "Each shooter takes 1 target, then immediately relocates while the others provide overwatch. By the time our response teams arrive, the active shooter is gone, and the others are covering his withdrawal." The tactical challenge was unprecedented. Sarah would need to identify and eliminate multiple targets who were actively protecting each other, all while operating alone in terrain that favored the defenders. "This is suicide, Mitchell," Martinez said bluntly. Even if you locate their positions, engaging multiple targets gives them opportunity to triangulate your position and return fire. Sarah had spent months studying exactly this scenario during her training with Ghost. The key was understanding that conventional counter-sniper tactics assumed you were hunting a single target. Against a coordinated team, you needed to think like a team even when operating alone. "I don't hunt them," Sarah replied. "I make them hunt me." Sarah's plan was audaciously simple. Instead of trying to locate the enemy sniper's hidden positions, she would force them to reveal themselves by creating an irresistible target, herself. Working with intelligence analysts, Sarah identified the pattern in the enemy team's target selection. They prioritized high-value assets like fuel tankers and ammunition convoys, but they also couldn't resist taking shots at obvious military targets like command vehicles or communications equipment. Sarah positioned herself on a ridge overlooking the main supply route, deliberately exposing equipment that would appear to be a forward observation post. Her actual shooting position was 200 yards away, carefully concealed but with perfect sight lines to the areas where enemy snipers would need to position themselves to engage her decoy location. For 3 days, nothing happened. Sarah remained motionless for up to 16 hours at a time, eating energy bars and drinking water through a tube system Ghost had designed for extended surveillance missions. On the 4th day, her patience was rewarded. Through her scope, Sarah detected minute movement in a rock formation 1,200 yards away. A shooter was carefully positioning himself for a shot at her decoy observation post. Sarah tracked the movement for 10 minutes, confirming the target and identifying his shooting position. But she didn't take the shot. According to intelligence reports, the enemy team never operated with fewer than 4 members. Eliminating one would alert the others and potentially compromise her entire operation. For the next hour, Sarah methodically identified the positions of 3 additional enemy snipers. They had positioned themselves with overlapping fields of fire that would allow them to protect each other while engaging targets on the supply route. Their tactical discipline was impressive, but it also created a vulnerability they didn't realize. Sarah's plan required split-second timing and perfect accuracy. She would have approximately 30 seconds to engage all 4 targets before they could coordinate a response or withdrawal. Miss one, and the survivors would disappear into the mountains, likely relocating to begin the deadly cycle again elsewhere. At 2:47 p.m. local time, the enemy team engaged a supply convoy that had entered the kill zone exactly as Sarah had predicted. As the 4 Taliban snipers focused on their targets below, Sarah began her own engagement sequence. Her first shot eliminated the team leader at 1,200 yards, a center mass hit that dropped him instantly. Her second shot, fired 6 seconds later, caught the secondary shooter as he was turning to identify the threat. The third shooter had begun moving toward cover when Sarah's bullet found him at an angle that physics textbooks would call impossible. The 4th sniper had identified Sarah's position and was bringing his rifle to bear when her final shot ended the engagement. 4 shots, 4 kills, elapsed time 28 seconds. The entire Taliban sniper team that had terrorized coalition forces for months was eliminated before they could return a single round of fire. But Sarah's mission wasn't complete. Intelligence suggested that this was one of 3 such teams operating in the region. Using communications equipment captured from the eliminated snipers, Sarah spent the next 2 weeks hunting the remaining teams. The second team fell victim to Sarah's psychological warfare tactics. She deliberately missed several shots at long range, making the enemy snipers believe they were being engaged by an incompetent shooter. When they moved to more aggressive positions to locate and eliminate the perceived amateur threat, Sarah was waiting with precision that ended the engagement in under a minute. The third team proved more challenging. Led by a former Pakistani military sniper who understood advanced counter-surveillance techniques, they avoided the traps that had eliminated their colleagues. Sarah spent 5 days tracking them through terrain that offered dozens of potential shooting positions and escape routes. The final engagement occurred at dawn on a Tuesday morning. Sarah had positioned herself on a mountain peak that offered 360-degree views of the surrounding terrain. Using thermal imaging equipment, she detected the enemy team moving through a valley 800 feet below her position. The shot angle was extreme, requiring calculations that accounted for gravity drop, wind drift at multiple altitudes, and the rotation of the Earth itself. It was the kind of shot that military training manuals described as theoretically possible, but practically impossible. Sarah's bullet traveled nearly 3 seconds before striking the team leader, who was advancing up a mountain trail. The other team members immediately sought cover, but Sarah had already calculated their likely positions. Her second and third shots eliminated them before they could identify the direction of the threat. The final member of the team, the former Pakistani sniper, proved more resourceful. Instead of seeking cover, he began moving towards Sarah's position, using terrain features to mask his approach while attempting to close distance for a manageable return shot. For 40 minutes, Sarah tracked his movement through her scope while he attempted a tactical approach that demonstrated genuine professional skill. When he finally reached a position where engagement was possible, Sarah was ready. The shot was fired at 1,847 yards, in a crosswind that required adjustment calculations most snipers would consider guesswork. Sarah's bullet struck the enemy sniper's center mass just as he was settling into his final shooting position. When Sarah returned to base camp that evening, she found General Hayes waiting with an expression of stunned disbelief. 12 confirmed kills in 3 weeks, the general said, reviewing the mission reports. 3 entire sniper teams eliminated by a single operator. Mitchell, these numbers are beyond exceptional. They're historically unprecedented. Sarah's response was characteristically modest. The mission parameters were successfully achieved, ma'am. The supply corridor is secure. But General Hayes was thinking beyond mission success. Word of Sarah's extraordinary performance had reached the highest levels of military command, including officials who had been responsible for her original dismissal from sniper school. Mitchell, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want a completely honest answer, General Hayes said. How many total confirmed kills do you have? Sarah was quiet for a moment. She had never been asked to provide a comprehensive count, and the number surprised even her. 63, ma'am. All verified through mission reports and independent confirmation. General Hayes stared at Sarah for several seconds. 63 confirmed kills in 18 months of operations. That's a higher kill count than most snipers achieve in entire careers. The implications were staggering. Sarah had not only proven her abilities, she had redefined what was possible for a military sniper. Her success rate, tactical innovation, and operational effectiveness exceeded anything in military records. Within a week of her Afghanistan operation, Sarah received a summons that she had been anticipating for months. A meeting with Lieutenant Commander Harrison, her former instructor at SEAL Sniper School. The meeting took place in a conference room at the Pentagon, attended by officials whose names appeared on organizational charts, but never in public documents. Harrison looked older than Sarah remembered, and considerably less confident. Miss Mitchell, he began, then corrected himself. Staff Sergeant Mitchell, I understand you've been quite busy since leaving our program. Sarah maintained military bearing, but inside she was savoring every second of this conversation. Yes, sir. I've been serving where needed. Harrison shuffled through a stack of classified files. 63 confirmed kills. 12 tactical innovations that have been incorporated into Special Operations Doctrine. 0 mission failures. 0 friendly fire incidents. 0 compromised positions. He looked up at Sarah. These numbers represent the most successful sniper operations in modern military history, accomplished by someone we determined wasn't qualified for our program. Sarah waited for Harrison to continue, understanding that this moment represented more than personal vindication. This was institutional acknowledgement that the military's exclusionary practices had wasted exceptional talent. I'm authorized to offer you reinstatement to the sniper program with full rank recognition and an official commendation for your service achievements, Harrison said. Additionally, you would be assigned as an instructor to help develop new training protocols based on your operational innovations. Sarah considered the offer carefully. 6 months ago, she would have accepted immediately, grateful for the opportunity to prove herself in the system that had rejected her. But her perspective had changed. With respect, sir, I'm not interested in proving myself to a system that required 63 confirmed kills before acknowledging my capabilities. I'm interested in changing that system so the next exceptional soldier doesn't face the same obstacles. Harrison nodded slowly. What are you proposing, Sergeant? I want to establish a new training program that evaluates snipers based on capability rather than conventional expectations. I want to train the next generation of marksmen using methods that emphasize adaptability, innovation, and results over conformity to existing protocols. Sarah paused, then delivered the statement that would echo through military command for years afterward. I want to make sure that no qualified soldier is ever again told they don't belong simply because they challenge assumptions about what a sniper should look like. 6 months later, the Mitchell Advanced Marksmanship Program graduated its first class of snipers. The curriculum emphasized psychological analysis, tactical innovation, and adaptive thinking over traditional physical requirements and standardized procedures. The program's graduates went on to achieve mission success rates that exceeded conventional sniper training by 30%. More importantly, the program attracted exceptional candidates who had previously been overlooked by traditional selection processes. Sarah Mitchell had accomplished something that transcended personal vindication. She had proven that true military effectiveness comes from utilizing the best available talent, regardless of any factor acceptability, to complete the mission successfully. Her legendary kill count had forced an entire institution to confront its own limitations and evolve beyond them. The woman who was once told she didn't belong had become the person who redefined what belonging meant. And somewhere in Montana, Ghost Reynolds read the reports of his former student's success with the satisfaction of a teacher who always knew that true excellence cannot be suppressed forever. Sarah had proven that rejection often creates the strongest motivation for greatness. She had shown that the most dangerous sniper on any battlefield might be the one nobody expected to succeed. Her legend continues to inspire soldiers who face their own institutional obstacles, reminding them that sometimes the best response to being told you can't succeed is simply proving everyone wrong, one impossible shot at a time.